that Disney had with Marvel, more specifically, had with a famous director in just 42 seconds. Hey guys, just a reminder that we want to hear your voice. If you like the show, please remember to leave a 5-star review on iTunes, or let us know that you like it by commenting on Spreaker.com or any Spreaker platform, or commenting or leaving a review on whatever platform you may want to get your podcast on. If you like the show, please, again, remember to subscribe, leave a review, because that's how you can support us. Also, if you like the show, please support us by going to Spreaker.com/TSWS, scrolling down and accessing our brand new merchandise store. Yeah, check that out. It's pretty cool. You're going to want to see it. And also, I don't want to really give anything away here, but we will have a new shirt for the new year, so look forward to that. I will be letting everybody know on my Twitter about that, and we'll talk about it here on our SWRN shows as well. But back to Disney, of course. They have absorbed Pixar, Lucasfilm, and now 20th Century Fox over the last 13 years, though arguably its smartest and most lucrative acquisition was Marvel and its stable of 5,000 characters in 2009 for what now looks like a paltry $4 billion. Marvel commercially and critically had a banner year, but also found itself at the center of one of 2019's most furious debates when Martin Scorsese threw shade in its direction, saying, quote, "That's not cinema," of Marvel's mega movies, inadvertently causing a Twitter meltdown. Honestly, the closest I can think of them, as well made as they are, with actors doing the best they can under the circumstances, is theme parks. Isn't the cinema of human beings trying to convey emotional, psychological experiences to another human being? Scorsese, of course, was talking in the lead-up to the release of The Irishman, his long-cherished drama that no studio would entertain given the risks involved, a 3.5-hour runtime accommodating a narrative spanning 7 decades, a $180 million budget which encompassed youthification effects, which are still being developed as production unfurled, and a group of OAPs, Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, Joe Pesci, Harvey Keitel, who, though icons all, were hardly Gen Z catnip. The Californian streaming agent Netflix, or giant Netflix, was the only outfit in town willing to support such a project backed by Marty's furrow-browed claims, eloquently expressing in an opinion piece penned for the New York Times the risk-taking being eschewed in studio filmmaking. Franchise films are now your primary choice if you want to see something on the big screen. It's a perilous time in film exhibition, and there are fewer and fewer independent theaters than ever. The fact is that screens in most multiplexes are crowded with franchise pictures, and I really do think he's got a pretty fair point. Like, that is such a prevalent reality in cinema today. Like, when you go to the movies, all you see is just franchise film after franchise. Like, probably. I'm trying to figure. Well, I saw Rise of Skywalker, Ford vs Ferrari. I don't remember the last movie that I saw after that, but it is such a big. Like, most of the box office hits were from Disney, and most of those were franchise films, whether it be from Marvel, whether it be from Star Wars or whatever. And that kind of lack of originality, that kind of lack of, and I do agree as well with the thing you said about theme parks. Sure, they can be very, very compelling to a lot of people, but the movie quality of old, I think, is in a big way lacking a lot of these films, which is an interesting dynamic worth, I think, exploring in the time to come. So more and more, it seems, cinemas were concentrating on event movies designed to tempt people away from their TV screens, iPads, and smartphones by promising gigantic, FX-heavy spectacles. Spectacles, I think is a really great word to describe it. Character-driven work, meanwhile, continue to gravitate to the streaming services, with Netflix bringing us The Irishman, Noah Baumbach's The Marriage Story, and David Michôd's The King, and Steven Soderbergh's The Laundromat. So I think there's like a lot of good stuff coming in on Netflix. That's taking the place and filling the void where studios have kind of left it open. And I think they really have been, maybe by more traditional film fans, I think they really have been rewarded by that. So, of course, Netflix and Amazon are far from the only option to stream movies. Popcorn Flicks, HBO Go / HBO Now, Hulu, Crackle, iTunes, YouTube, Vudu, and many more offer an array of content. Major players like Apple Plus and Disney Plus launched in 2019. That's right, Disney again, and the company once more found itself in the center of controversy when it dropped The Mandalorian in November, but will not be available in the UK until March for some reason. I don't know why. I need to divide 2019 movies into cinema versus quality 2019 movies into cinema or eye-popping tentpole movies and streaming, which is quality writing, is not really. It's really kind of just an oversimplification of the situation here. Because the consistent quality of MCU movies suggests that we are living in a golden age of blockbuster filmmakers. For starters, Netflix this year tweaked its release model perhaps to further attract name filmmakers, or maybe to offer an olive branch to the Academy of Motion Pictures of Arts and Sciences. Netflix's much-fancied Roma, after all, lost out to Green Book for Best Picture Oscar this past February, and the Academy bias was further highlighted in March when Steven Spielberg labeled Netflix films as TV movies. And it was so that in August, Netflix announced a change to its model with The Irishman and Marriage Story, two hot favorites for major Oscars in February of 2020, released into cinemas for several weeks before dropping out on the streaming service. And they were not the only movies. The Laundromat, The King, Dolomite Is My Name, Earthquake Bird, Klaus, I Lost My Body, Toy Story 4's biggest rival for Best Animated Feature going, and The Two Popes and Atlantics were all favored with the same treatment. A little bit of time in the theaters just to kind of make a broad appeal, so you tempt people, but the real justification for releasing these movies was it going to be its performance on Netflix. So, also blurring the divide are the sheer number of excellent movies that found their way into cinemas regarding the changing landscape. The Favorite, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Booksmart, Ad Astra, Vox Lux, Mid-90s, If Beale Street Could Talk, that was a good one. High Life, Pain and Glory for Sama, Minding the Gap, Knives Out, The Souvenir, 8th Grade, Sorry We Missed You, Wild Rose, Gloria Bell, Diego Maradona, Animals, The Peanut Butter Falcon, Rojo, Nightingale, So Long My Son, and some of those were studio products, many independent, but all helped contribute to an exceedingly strong year. Just to muddy the division beyond all comprehension came the tried and trusted IP that promised bangs but delivered whimpers. Hellboy, Terminator, Dark Fate, X-Men, Dark Phoenix, Men in Black International, Doctor Sleep, which is supposed to be a sequel to The Shining, and Charlie's Angels, all underperformed, leading to some to speculate that audiences were finally tiring of sequel prequels, reboots, and reimaginings. Lovely idea until you consider that 18 of the top 20 earners were based on some kind of sequel or prequel or reboot or whatever, that kind of thing. Horror movies, they had a big role in the year. The two exceptions to the rule were Jordan Peele's Us and Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It was perhaps a coincidence that the former was an out-and-out horror movie, and the latter, especially in its Spawn Ranch sequence, glowered with foreboding, but there can be no arguing it was a strong year for horror, which was really no surprise given the troubled times that we live in. It Chapter 2 was the biggest horror hit of the year, taking $470 million, that's significantly lower than the predecessor's $700 million, but no mean feat for an R-rated film that cost $79 million to make. Jordan Peele's second film, Us, matched the $255 million worldwide gross for his first Get Out, though it netted though $20 million budget was more than 4 times higher, so there is that. And Annabelle Comes Home netted $228 million from a $27 to $32 million budget, a drop up from Annabelle Creations' $306 million, or the whopping $365 million garnered by last year's Conjuring spinoff, The Nun, but it's still pretty impressive nonetheless. But where horror really scored this year was critically, at its exhilarating batch of nightmare movies solidified the newfound respect being accorded to a genre long treated with snobby disregard. Midsummer, In Fabric, Madeline's Madeline, Lords of Chaos, One Cut of the Dead, and Border all crowd glowing reveals upon theatrical releases. Robert Eggers' follow-up to The Witch, The Lighthouse, was one of the best-reviewed films at the Cannes Film Festival. It opened in the U.S. in October, but does not bow in UK cinemas until January. And such straight-to-DVD streaming titles such as The Dead Center, The Perfection, Blew My Mind, Here Comes Hell, Hagazusa, Ethan's Curse, and Depraved proved that the quality ran deep. Arguably the most disturbing film of the year, however, and one that was greeted with a swath of think pieces that offered something of an unwelcome throwback to the draconian bandless sick-filth days of video nasties in the early 1980s, was Todd Phillips' The Joker. Made for 55 to 70 million, the foregoing large-scale audio action set pieces determinedly R-rated and plugged in the both angry, alienated guy pictures of a young Martin Scorsese owning 2019 at the age of 77. By the way, he's doing that. Shout out to Martin. Real shout out to the man, Marty. Still killing it after all these years. Yeah, that's right. 77 years old. And the visions of today's Americans say nothing yet of Britain in Europe. The Joker stood proudly apart from the DC's extended universe to imagine the most distressing origin tale. Written by Phillips and Scott Silver, it got close and uncomfortably personal with Arthur Fleck, ensuring viewers emphasize with this oddball loner as he struggled to cope with the abuse he suffered as a child, lost a job as a clown, fell into the cracks of the mental health system, and failed his dream of becoming a stand-up comedian. When his rage finally boiled over live on TV, his sick actions were lionized by the disaffected masses. Variously lambasted for being irresponsible, fascist, I don't know about that, but and a call to arms for the incel movement, Joker caused a controversy, and I've never really seen more people wishing for massive attacks at the theaters than I have in my entire life for this release of this Joker movie. Thankfully, though, none happened, or maybe not so thankfully for some people online. But, and it was also a very interesting class-based movie, so that was an interesting dynamic there on that. Phillips told Total Film magazine they felt the think pieces, many of them by people who hadn't seen the film, were off base. If they write a think piece like that, to me it's not a true think piece because they're talking about the tip of the iceberg. Really, what do you want to know about what's underneath the water? What leads it to that? In other words, if the movie promotes discussion of the healthcare system in this country and how people with no money are relegated to certain treatment and other people aren't, if the movie points a finger at the socioeconomic class that we have in the States, and I'm sure that you have in the UK, why is that bad exactly? Isn't the whole point of these things to promote discussion? Yeah, you can look at Fight Club and say, wow, Fight Club is going to start fights, but that's the most reductive way to look at Fight Club. When you actually look at consumerism and things that Fight Club is really about, it's a much more interesting conversation. And yeah, I think that class dynamic is something that he really intended, but a lot of people, maybe not as smart as he anticipated, didn't pick up on it. So there is that. That's this year in movies. Now, let's take a look at a banner year for television. Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk television. I want to start with HBO. And on May 19th, 2019, just before 10:30 p.m., almost 14 million people watched Jon Snow emerge from the wall with a band of wildlings. 5.7 million more would watch within the next week. Through 8 seasons, Snow had gone from bastard son to undead king in the north to rightful heir to the Iron Throne, all the way back to a man with nothing, aside from his direwolf, of course. He looked at the Night King and the Mad Queen in the eyes and lived to tell the tale. Although one last look back at the wall, Jon Snow forged ahead towards a new life with hope and relief filling his war-torn face, and the screen cut to black for the last time, of course. It makes me still kind of annoyed to think about, I'm not going to lie. Game of Thrones ended in 2019. The HBO series had started humbly and on slightly shaky ground. The show's pilot infamously had to be reshot and largely recast, but Thrones grew to become the defining television series of the 2010s. The show chopped off its protagonist's head at the end of Season 1. At the end of Season 3, killed off nearly every member of the family the audience had been told to root for. Thrones introduced most of the world to now megastars like Peter Dinklage, Lena Headey, Kit Harington, Nikolai Coster-Waldau, Sophie Turner, Maisie Williams, and Emilia Clarke. And each year, its audience grew from 2.5 million average viewers in the first season, nearly 12 million in the last season. And Game of Thrones is such a phenomenon, perhaps the last TV show that will ever be considered such. And I think really it's because it took risks. It was unlike anything else on TV at the time, because it was and really all throughout its run, because nothing else was really covering that ground. It was a real story. And it was something that, like, the world was so deeply immersed, and it was just out of nowhere. It was something that it was just so different, so unique, and so well done. This is what I think made it so successful. HBO's president of programming, Casey Blois, doesn't really remember what he was doing on that May night, saying, quote, "I didn't watch it, but Blois never watches any of the shows live. He's already seen them so many damn times when they hit the air. Maybe, though, he was following along as the world grappled with the fact that Grant Stark had stunningly become